In this video, I'm going to be reviewing Jujutsu Kaisen Season 1. Since I can't use footage from the show, I'm going to be putting some of my Doom 2016 gameplay footage on the screen. Let's start the review. This is the first anime review that I'm posting, and I'm glad to be starting out with an absolute hit smash, banger show. In a nutshell, this show is about curses and the people who fight curses, and this is an action show, and almost all of the runtime is used for action, and the action in this show is outstanding. As I just said beforehand, most of the runtime in this show is used for action, and then there's a small amount of runtime used for the narrative. And after the first episode, the show hits the gas, it goes full throttle without slowing down, except for one speed bump, which I'll get to later. The thing that makes the action so good in this show is that there's not 2 frames of action and slight camera movement or pause in the battle for the characters to talk. They just keep fighting, and it's like 5 minutes of action. And something else that I appreciate about the action in this show is that it's not distorting to look at. You can tell what's going on, even if it's fast paced. It's also amazing to me that none of it was compensated with CGI, or if there was CGI, I didn't notice it. Mappa is the studio behind the animation, and I think they nailed everything in the visual department, from the art style to the animation itself. The show has an amazing soundtrack, so whenever there's something going on, like a fight, you could just feel the adrenaline from the fight and the music. As of posting this video, the show only has 2 openings, and the music for both of those slaps in my opinion. I know that probably isn't a very good description of the music, but I'm not good at reviewing music beyond the way it makes me feel or what it makes me think. I'm going to talk about the characters next. Something I need to mention about the characters is that the characters aren't that deep, but their abilities are super cool. So you're not gonna like hear a character's backstory and go, "Holy cow, this is such a realization." And then you're not gonna like shed a tear and then like have a self-reflection on your life. Like they're not that deep. But as I said, their abilities are super cool. The show has a lot of characters, so I'm not going to talk about all of them, but yeah, as I said, the characters are super cool, and I'm not going to try to pronounce their names either because they're all in Japanese, so I'm just going to be descriptive. The protagonist uses fist and powers them up with curse energy to pull off some really cool moves, like some cool punches, some cool kicks, things like that. One of the other main characters uses animals to help him fight. That's like his whole thing. He doesn't really do anything beyond. Besides, he doesn't do anything beyond uses animals to fight. And there's a girl that's also a main character that causes direct damage to things by grabbing something like one of their hairs and nails it down to one of her straw hammer and nails. And then will take like a piece of hair of an enemy, nail it down onto a straw dole, and then that deals like direct damage to the enemy. So that's like her whole thing. There's also a panda, and yes, I do really mean like a real living panda as one of the characters. And he has 3 different attack forms, and they all focus on something different. One of the teachers wears a blindfold, and he pretty much defies gravity with his power. The one name I can pronounce, which is Toto, he's pretty much a muscle man, and Toto teaches the protagonist some things about how to use fists and kicks and things like that, since he also specializes in close range combat, fist combat. I know I've only so far mentioned the good guys, but now I'm going to mention some of the bad guys because they are also cool. There's the King of Curses, and he's extremely powerful and pretty much a psychopath. There's this guy who has a volcano on top of his head, and he uses fire and lava to attack. There's this guy who can make a flower field to make his enemies become friendly and distracted. This plant guy can also take life energy out of plants and convert it into cursed energy to power a huge shoulder cannon. There's also this guy who can touch someone and completely change their shape and make them do what he wants. I think you could tell based off the amount of characters I mentioned that I don't think there's a single bad character. They're all good in my opinion. Something that I noticed that there are a lot of complaints about how the plot is simple and predictable, and that's true, but I don't personally care because it's executed well, and the plot is super simple on purpose so that it can allow for a ton of cool characters and a lot of fighting. I only have two complaints with this show, with one of them being major and one of them being minor. Remember from earlier in the video when I said this show has a speed bump? What I mean is that there's one filler episode, which is episode 21, where they just play baseball the entire episode. That is my only major complaint about this show. The minor complaint I have about this show is that on about episode 12, the main character gets stabbed with a poison spike, and he doesn't get poisoned, and they don't explain why or how he's not getting poisoned until episode 24 when he gets poisoned again. And this time, they explain why he doesn't get poisoned and reference back to that scene that I was describing before. So I just wish they would have explained it the first time to not make it seem like plot armor. That's all the complaints I have for this show. It's time to give the score. I'm giving Jujutsu Kaisen Season 1 a 5 out of 5. I feel like I need to justify why I'm giving this a 5 out of 5 when there was one filler episode and one minor complaint about what I thought was originally plot armor, but it turns out it wasn't plot armor. The reason is because of the action that the show presents and the characters and their abilities are the reason why I'm giving this a 5 out of 5. I'm excited for Season 2 of Jujutsu Kaisen. On a slightly off-topic note, I've discovered that there's a lot of animes where they use this very action-oriented dynamic, where most of the runtime is used for action, and the action slaps, and they give the characters cool abilities. I'm all for this, and I've been watching a lot of this stuff recently. That's about it. See ya.